It's great to see you, Mike. I'm very happy to see where you landed.
Appreciate it.
Seed is a really impressive company.
Thank you.
And what I want to get into really is all of the reasons why everybody else failed and you're doing great.
But okay, tell me more.
Well, okay. So we've seen a lot of display companies over the years, right?
Hmm.
Some of them we're partners with, and some of them are actually really good.
Okay.
Right? We've seen talented people doing great things with screens, but they're not incorporating wait lists. They're not incorporating the customization that you are, which is pretty cool. I'm not here to kiss your ass. I mean, I am, but not just that. It's pretty great what your tech does. Why? What makes it so different?
It's a good question. I think without talking for too long, we are cannabis specific. I think that's a huge focus of it. You know, a lot of the companies that are in the industry or have been in the industry and stopped are really spread thin because they're focusing on
Mm.
multiple different industries. And as great as the cannabis industry is, as much as we all love it, there is a reality that cannabis retailers are very small compared to traditional retail. And
Mhm.
if you are focused on several different industries, maybe your big customer is McDonald's. All right. And I don't care how large the largest MSOs in cannabis are, they pale in comparison when looking at that. So you're constantly building towards your biggest demographic of customers. And if that demographic of customers is not a cannabis customer, then you're always going to be looking at things that maybe do not work in the cannabis industry. We know how unique this industry is and how many nuances there are. So we really try and focus on only building out things specific to the cannabis industry.
Well, I appreciate and respect that. But it does beg the question if the market is big enough,
Mhm. Oh,
right?
I'm sorry.
Like,
Yeah. Is the market
yeah,
big enough
no,
for us?
yeah,
Yes.
because we are in a niche market and we see the life cycle of each of these markets boom, bust,
Mhm.
and then some kind of reconciliation.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the. I'm really waiting for another boom in cannabis. To be honest with you, it's been just to take a step back. You know, I've been in the cannabis space since 2017, early 2017. So I've certainly seen a couple of different cycles. Give you a little background on myself because I think you and I know each other very well. Maybe forgot to do the intros, but
Go ahead.
I've been in software since about 2009. Started my software
Mm.
career with IBM. Really learned a lot about software from there, but also learned that I don't like really big companies. So 2012, I started my career in startups. Been in Denver startup scene for a long time. Was fortunate enough to make my way over to FlowHub in 2017 as one of their first employees. Started out as their director of sales, scaled up the sales team, made the first couple hires in customer success, got them going. Worked a lot with operations, ended up just kind of working across the organization. And when I started, we had two markets, right? It was really Oregon and Colorado. Washington was a market, but it wasn't one that we focused on because at the time, FlowHub was only working with metrics, so we did not work
Mm.
in the Washington markets. So 3.5 years at FlowHub, opened up a bunch of new markets, got to see Missouri, Michigan, Maryland, Massachusetts, a lot of M's come on board, and each market with its own unique sense to it, its own unique needs.
Mhm.
One of the best things about this industry is seeing how new markets develop. And then I went over to LeafLogix and was their head of operations there. I worked directly under James Minatello, who's the CEO, and started their customer success team. Believe it or not, for as large of a company as we were at the time, they didn't have a customer success team. So I kind of, analyzed of all the customers we have, who most needs customer success, how many people can we
Mhm.
afford in the department. Long story short, acquisition of Dutchy came through. That was fascinating. I never want to go through something like that again, but to be from a 30-person company at LeafLogix, about that size when we were acquired, bring in Greenbits, who was probably around 50 or 60, and then Dutchy. So our combined, we had about 150 people, scaled up to 600 people, all remotely in the span of about 5 months. And then up and down, up and down. Was there for a couple of years. Fortunate enough, I was able to come over and find a home at Seed Technology. So a little bit of my background, and as going through that, I think I forgot your original question. So let's circle back to that.
Well, but
Okay.
yes, so I see how you got there from here. It's really funny. I've been on both sides of the acquisition table.
Yeah.
It's not pretty no matter how you look at it.
No.
Everything always looks good on paper. And then when you're going through the process and then you're doing the integration, you can hire as many consultants as you need to, but they don't typically get it right.
Right.
And it can get ugly. And I'm not suggesting that things are ugly over there, but that transitional period is rough.
I mean, change management, whether it's from a customer moving into a new software, a new platform, expanding
Yeah.
into a new market, or ancillary businesses coming together as one, it's always
And
incredibly
defining your
difficult.
strategy and figuring out what your product line is going to be. There's a
Yeah.
lot of confusion around that, and it can get pretty gnarly. So
Mhm.
at Seed, are you at a large company? Is it a small company?
No, we're a nimble, lean company. We have probably 20 full time employees right now. We have added a couple people in the last few months in very strategic roles, which is great, and we'll continue to do so. One of the things that everyone in this industry can appreciate is you really try and keep your overhead low.
Hell
Um,
yeah.
I mean, let's be honest, there is no outside funding really going on right now. There was definitely a cycle in, the 2020, 2021 when Dutch was able to raise all that capital, and so were several other companies. That's simply not the reality of where we are now. Fortunately, our platform, although very sophisticated, it's not a point of sale, right?
Mhm.
When we launch, there's nuances of markets, but we're not worried about labels. We're not worried about compliance, figuring out calculations behind the scene of when you discount something, how's that affect everything else? We're
Right.
not doing all that. So we don't need to be a 500 person company to be able to
Right.
service. And that's going back to your question. Is the industry big enough for us? Absolutely. The industry is big enough for a couple of players. And the industry where it is now, if you have a long-term view on it, it's nowhere
Mhm.
near where it's going to be. We're finally at the
Mhm.
tipping point where we have majority of states have a legal recreational market. Certainly when you factor in medical right now and look at what's on the ballots coming up in 2025 and beyond, it's going to continue to grow. Right now, we have about 800, actually more than that, 800 dispensaries that we're in, probably have close to 6,000 screens. We are focused on the United States. We are not up in Canada. There's nothing preventing us from doing that. It's
Yeah,
just
the
a
market is preventing you from doing that.
well, there you go. So, strategic decision to really stay focused on the U.S. market, which I think
Right.
makes a lot of sense for us. But look, I mean, Florida Amendment 3 goes through. The Florida market by itself is going to be an
Yeah.
absolute monster in all the best ways. New York is finally getting their footing, and I think in 2025 we're going to start to see some of that equilibrium
Yeah.
where the card applicants that were the first ones to market, rightfully so, are finally going to be up and running and have their head start. And maybe we're going to start to see a lot more general licenses come in, some of the bigger players. And I'm so excited to see how that market pans out. But it's going to be incredible. And then you look at Pennsylvania. If they go recreational, what's the one of the largest states that we have, Ohio going recreational, there's
Mhm.
plenty of customers for us to stay focused on cannabis. And hey, in the future, maybe we move over to Europe. Maybe we start expanding into international markets. Don't give me that. I want to go be the head of sales over in Barcelona. I don't know what you
Well,
don't
that sounds
want.
like a good time.
It does, right?
It really does.
And if you could do it while still succeeding in business, that's absolutely the best thing to do.
I looked very hard at Europe. I formed a company in Ireland and we were doing the whole thing. And then
Mhm.
I started realizing that our competitors were the owner's cousins, right? The guy that lives 2 kilometers down the road is the guy we're competing with. And it's like, how do
That's
you,
tough.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's tough. Well, that's really interesting shit. And the way that the market is going and
Mhm.
growing, every time one of the presidential candidates sneezes, all the stocks go
Yeah.
up and back down. And we don't know how that's all going to play out. It will, in the long term, be good for patients, I assume, and for recreational users, I assume. I really hope so.
Mhm.
That's the whole thing. I don't know how that affects the local markets, but at the same time, to a certain degree, it doesn't matter as it relates to providing services to the people that are getting into the industry. And what, yeah, go ahead, please.
Well, see, I think we're at the point now, regardless of your political affiliations, that both candidates realize that cannabis is a winning proposition. Hey, it's
Yeah.
jobs, it's stimulation, it's tax dollars, and
Yep.
people want it. It is overwhelmingly positive within the voting community. The
Yep.
only people who continue to fight this are the people that are being paid by big pharma and other companies to keep it out, whether that's tobacco or
Yeah,
something else.
but there's also fanatics. There are also
Sure.
prohibitionists, and there's only one of the candidates that I believe when they say that they're going to do something federally, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we could go down a really bad
We're not
rabbit
going to
hole.
go down the rabbit hole,
I'm
but what I would
remaining
say,
optimistic. Look, at the end of the day, the job creation and the tax
Yeah,
revenue from cannabis is undeniable. We
undeniable.
need to make these jobs more stable. We need to make these jobs better
Mhm.
paying, more equitable. You can say that about everything in the economy right now, all jobs, right?
Yeah,
But I think, like everything else, we're just scratching the surface. I mean, legal cannabis has only been around for less than a decade,
yeah,
and if you look at when prohibition ended with alcohol, you study those first, 10, 20 years, it's nothing like it is today, obviously.
right.
So people need to, at the same time, be patient and have a long-term view, but also work their ass off to get it done right now and do everything they can to continually improve this.
Right. And that's a pretty big barrier to entry to people looking at the market and trying to figure out how to get in. And I see that when
Mm.
I look at people that are in the traditional IT space or the traditional
Yeah.
security place, they don't know where to start. Or they have one or two clients and it's great, but there's no way to expand because this market is so fragmented. And
Yeah.
there's only a few players that have been grinding it out for 10 years. It's
Yeah.
few and far in between.
Almost none. I mean, I'm having a hard time thinking, there's certainly operators where I'm talking about plant touching businesses that have been around since day one, very few.
Of course.
If you look at the software companies, I mean, BioTrack and Akerna were probably the two true legacy operators. BioTrack is still around.
Mhm.
Akerna is a crypto mining company.
Right.
It's just
Right.
there's very few things. So that gets down to one of the core tenets of this industry is you have to iterate, you have to continually improve and be agile in what you're doing. Another
Right.
advantage to having a relatively small, incredibly focused company as to what you're doing.
hmm It really matters keeping your overhead low because it is a boom bust, and it can go by month, it could go by week.
Mm-hmm.
Some days are good, some days are bad. But that being said, I think we all have a shared interest in seeing this all grow, and it's
100%.
really fun. It's really fun to see our friends succeed, and it's great to see you at Seed. So,
Thank you.
what is? Why did you decide to make an Apple TV app as opposed to
Yeah.
just a browser based full screen setup or a kiosk?
Yeah, that's a great question. So let me first say what we do. Our full capacity
Yeah.
of what we do here is we are an enterprise-based platform to take care of all of your in-store digital needs. So our bread and butter is always going to be your TV menus, fully integrated with your point of sale and or your e-commerce, whatever works better for you. We have tablets that are interactive, more of informational, educational touch displays. We also have full self-service kiosks. We have printed menus, which I know I said digital. We got some analog as well, but we do really bespoke, kind of customized printed menus, which is great for customers who want to have both ends of the spectrum. Digital attracts them in there, get to the cash wrap, have an intimate conversation with a paper menu. It works very well that way. And then the newest thing, which you mentioned briefly, that I'm super excited about is our virtual queuing, our kiosks. I'm sorry, not kiosks, our virtual queues, which we could get back to that. But so there's a lot of different things we do there. Why we have an Apple-based, what a couple reasons. One, we want to focus on our software. And in order to just focus on our software, we don't really want to build hardware. We don't want to build, a little device that sticks to your TVs that we have to also work on the hardware. It's very difficult when you're bifurcating your resources into two different things. Apple TVs are the best, hardware you can buy for someone who's doing what we can. What we really
hmm
like about the Apple TVs is the MDM aspects of it. You being an IT guy, you'll greatly appreciate it. When we have the mobile device management, we are able to set up all of our customers with their organizational's Apple ID and give them full security and control over their entire network. That's something that's
hmm
very hard to do. And the more sophisticated the customer is, the more they really appreciate that. What we don't want to do is have our software not work because of the hardware it's being run on. We don't want to have security breaches. We want to make sure that we have control to turn sleep off, to automatically update the software at the right time. All of that's done through the Apple TVs and our MDM.
So that's super smart, but
Thank you.
also a
It's
pain
not
in
my
the ass
idea.
every time. I think it's very smart. I love the concept of having MDM because we're deploying MDM on all the kiosks we deploy.
Okay.
Kiosks have become huge for us, and we put MDM on everything. And explaining why that's important has become
Yeah.
quite a chore. But putting that aside, are you bumping up against, and I know you're not in the development side of the company,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm fascinated by having to get approval from Apple to do your updates and getting approval to have a cannabis application within their app ecosystem. Are there any issues around that?
There haven't ever been any issues around it, and it's
Right.
just an app that you download. It's not a cannabis app. It's an app to drive your menus and to drive your digital needs. It's not like Leafly trying to get into the Apple Store or Weed Maps, which are and maybe that's a bad example. And I
Mm,
don't think they're in the Apple Store. I don't know. Yeah, I mean,
no, and
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, so a lot of companies have tried side loading on Android devices.
Hmm.
One major point of sale company does do that because they want to avoid the App Store, and it's not just because they feel like there's going to be a ban on cannabis related apps. It's
Yeah,
more like they don't want to go through the process of unit testing the way that Apple wants it to happen, and
yeah.
all of the fun stuff along with publishing and waiting.
Yeah, we've had
But
zero issues with it, or maybe there's some issues before I got here. That all I know is, for the year I've been here, we work on other devices as well. Don't get me wrong. We want everyone on an Apple TV, and now it's to the point where our new customers coming on, you have to make a really good case to operate on a different device, because even if
you
it, I'm sorry.
can you operate on a different device if you want to?
We can. We've had to build a few things to have our application work on other
Mm.
devices, but it's just again, it's just stick with what you know, streamline your operations, and go with best in class.
Yeah,
So you really have to make a strong argument for us to put you on a different device, because sometimes you know better than your customer as to what's going to work for them long term. And being on Apple TVs with our software works incredibly well.
100%. And are you doing all of the fleet management via MDM for your clients? I would imagine
If
you
they
have
want
some
us to.
large.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
If
cut you
you,
off. So
but
not
so
everyone
you're
has to be on
doing their own.
MDM. Look,
Got
MDM makes sense if you have a lot of stores, if
Yeah,
you're operating across several different states. If you
right.
have, one, two, three locations and you have a good IT team in there, you don't need to be on our fleet management. Absolutely
Got
not.
it.
We recommend it, and we can certainly set it up for you. So it's really simple process. You just create an Apple ID for your organization, and we prefer like, hey, we will get the devices for you. We will then bring them in house, get them all configured for you, go through the entire process, and then either ship them to your central repository where you could move them out from there, or ship them into your individual locations. And that really helps streamline the process. And then we know exactly when the TVs are arriving. So we have a meeting set that day. We walk them through. I mean, installation is simply USB, just put it right in there. It's not really hard, put it on the back of the TV with a cage or whatever, but we will help with all of those things for you. But again, we don't need to.
But you're offering procurement via Apple.
Yes.
Are you an Apple authorized reseller, or are you going through a CDW tech company?
That's a question that is much better for
And
our
also,
hardware
nobody
team.
gives a shit. So we're going to move on. Nobody
Yes,
cares.
exactly.
I just have to know because we've ended up with clients. Some of them require iPads, and Apple makes it
Mhm.
really hard to resell their equipment.
Okay.
And as a reseller, it has been challenging in the past. We have
All
a way
right.
to do it, but
Well, you and
it
Matt
is
Catone need to sit down and have a conversation. Matt, his previous two companies were both hardware related.
so
And
interesting.
so I'm sure he could really help you out with a lot of these questions.
Great. Okay, so let's talk about multi-tenancy.
Mhm.
Right? So you've got a client that has multiple brands, right?
Sure.
An MSO that has multiple brands in different states. Are you managing that as a collective, or are they separate instances because it's branded individually?
Sort of both, honestly. So we have top-down management, which is really one of the big advantages of what we're doing. I saw this all the time in the POS game. Back when I started, there were no multi-state operators. And
Right.
so it was like, okay, I remember, I don't want to say who they are, but one of the largest players in Colorado, I think, was for a brief time the largest operator in cannabis, but they were
Mm.
only in Colorado. So we built everything specific. And then as we started to expand, especially when we went to Leaf Logics, who really focused on MSOs, you would have GTI, who's operating in, 14 different markets. So on one hand, you want to have top-down management. One person's making the decisions. If that's
Mm.
their VP of retail, or we deal with a lot of head of retail or their chief marketing officer, or whomever that may be, they have a
Mm.
strategy. But then if you have these large operators, they're broken down into segments, into different markets. So there is probably like, 60, 40, 50, 50 of content that should be on all screens, regardless of the market they're in, and then content specific to the markets. And we make that very easy to do by having just drop downs. So you can go ahead, some of our MSOs, they have regions, which is interesting because the regions aren't even state specific. It's Northeast region, Southeast region, Central, whatever that may be. And they have a head of marketing in that particular region, and we work with that team. And our customer success team works with them to have specific content to the products in that market, the discounts in the markets, the promotions. And then it still has top-down control, though. So one person can see exactly what's going on at all screens across their entire fleet, yet we give the ability to have the nuances needed for each one of the individual markets.
I love that. That's a really great approach. I have a question from some guy named Manir. I think that's how you pronounce it.
Never heard of them. Yeah, I see some Joe nobody. Yeah.
Is the appetite the same in medical and rec for queue management, or I'm going to add on my part of the question? Is
Yeah.
it based on demand in the
Yeah.
actual store itself?
Yeah, so queue management is a new feature that we rolled out. I think we first went live with it probably about 6 months ago. And it's a great feature where what we do is we were approached by Dutchy, even though we're integrated with several different point of sale providers at this time with this solution. Dutchy was like, hey, we have a lot of requests for people who need to better manage their lines, better manage their queues in their store. Dutchy can build it, but this is, again, build versus buy. It's a conversation we have with our customers, but also the other ancillary businesses, software companies. It's like, yeah, we can build it, but is that where we want to put our resources?
Right.
So they were, great partners with us. We have full integration to their API. So if you know anything about point of sales, you have swim lanes, and the swim lanes are completely configurable. You may have one swim lane that is for your e-com, your pre-orders. You can have your waiting room. You could have your ready for pickup, whatever it may be. As your customer moves through the store, they have all these different swim lanes they move to. Our software can grab those swim lanes and visualize them on your screens however you see fit. We could take the nomenclature that you have in the point of sale. You could put different nomenclature up there. We could have the customer's full name, first initial, last name. We could have last 4 digits of their phone number, the time they checked in, anything you want to do. So they approached us. Our first market that we really went big with was Ohio. And at the time, they were medical, but the smart operators are always looking to, what do we need to do to future-proof ourselves? Once recreational was known that it was going to pass, these people are saying, look, we're stress testing our operations. A couple of very, very high IQ customers that we have out there came to us. Say, guys, we got a stress test. We are going to 4X the amount of people that come into our store on day one. And one of the things we need to do is tell customers where to go in the store. If we have a waiting room and they're not used to sitting around for half an hour simply because there's too many people in the store, do they know when they checked in? Do our staff know? How does our staff still give priority to medical over recreational? So all these things that we could do in our queue management system. To get back to the original question, much greater demand in the recreational markets. Because traditionally in most medical markets, you're just not going to have that many people in the store at one time. And I don't like talking about who our customers are, but if I tell the story, you can probably be able to figure out. There's a store in North Carolina that just went recreational, the first recreational store in North Carolina 2 weeks ago. They had 4,000 people in their store on the first day. They approached us, and again, another very intelligent operator said, hey, we are going to get our asses kicked, and it's going to be great, but man, we need to figure something out. They have 21 terminals and 3 drive-thrus. And they incorporated our queue into there to help manage the entire process. And we even built on a couple of additional things, because what's interesting, and if I'm getting too nerded out on this, just let me know, but I love what we're able to do, is in the point of sale, they drop off of the swim lanes when the order is complete. But in the store, the order is complete. Then they go to pickup. Well, they're no longer in the point of sale, so now they don't really know what the queue is for the pickup. So we're able to build a bridge from completed transaction to kind of create a new swim lane that more lived in our software because it was outside of their point of sale, where then the fulfillment person could just click the name every time they picked it up, comes right off that queue. And that's all, again, visualized internally as well as externally. The next frontier we're looking at is Florida. So, we're starting to have some really good conversations with Florida. I think everyone's very optimistic on Amendment 3 passing. And man, it's going to be a great market. I can't wait to be down in Miami with legal weed. It's just going to be phenomenal. And I mean, Miami is already great, but that's, so that's been really interesting. And we're starting to have some conversations around how are you looking at technology to help streamline your businesses when you're going to have so many more customers coming in. And so I'm just open to those conversations. I love having just a general talk to me about your business. What are your fears? What are your hopes? What are your goals? And how does our technology potentially fit into that?
Right.
So that's really where we are with the queue management. And yeah, very much most attention is being paid on the markets that are recreational or going towards recreational when there'll be a big seismic shift in how their operations are operated.
100%. And planning for scale is a very, very challenging problem.
It really
And
is.
it's good that people are asking the right questions about how they're
Mm-hmm.
going to manage people. My wife and I were on a road trip throughout Wisconsin,
Okay.
and we jumped over to the Upper Peninsula
Oh yeah.
into Michigan and stopped at this great dispensary called Higher Love.
Mm-hmm.
Are they a customer of yours?
Off the top of my head, I'm not sure. There's a couple of
You
higher ups,
don't
and
know all 800 of your dispensaries?
not off the top of my head. I'm sorry, I don't.
Jesus Christ.
We do have a
So
long
we,
list though. Yeah.
we stopped in there, and I'm used to Los Angeles, where
Mm-hmm.
at this point there aren't a lot of dispensaries that have lines.
Yeah.
Right, there are some waiting rooms, and sometimes you see a kiosk and it's got cobwebs on it, whatever. There's not a lot of lines, and they had queue management software exactly the way you describe it. I
Oh.
wouldn't be surprised if it was your system. It was fucking brilliant. You drop your name. Do you want to talk to a bud tender? Go inside. Are you here for pickup? Would you like to use a kiosk, place your order, and go to the pickup window? It was the smoothest operation. And what was really great about them is they also had their gear around the waiting room. I ended up
Yeah.
buying a T-shirt, right, adding to that
Yeah.
basket size,
Exactly.
and it was a really great experience. And also, when I got in, the bud tenders were great. So, Higher Love, you're doing the right thing. Fucking, I'll give you my mailing address later. But
Yeah.
I, I gotta tell you,
Yeah.
it's a
Having
game changer.
Well, given the ability for your customers to roam around the store and, like I said, increase that basket size, buy some gear, get a hat, get a t-shirt, get lighters, whatever that may be, without having to stand in a specific line and looking around, but afraid to get out of that line.
What do I do?
Instead, you just let them roam free, and then they just beep, you look up and there's your name, or they call your name, or however you want to do it. There's so many different ways to integrate the queue into your store.
I do have one question. We have a couple of questions. Thanks, Kurt. Yes, Higher Love is fucking great. Are there any regs on the books? Nothing comes to mind
Mhm.
about what you can and cannot display on a screen. I'm going to assume that you'll be, HIPAA compliant if you have like first initial or first name, last initial, or something like that.
Sure. Oh, sticking with the queues and not just in general. Yeah, sticking with the queues. Each state has some different regulations, and we expect the operators that we're talking to be aware of those. I mean, especially in these HIPAA compliant states. And like I said, we could do
Sure,
anything
you
that makes sense
froze.
to you. Oh, did you freeze up there, Eric? There we go. Did you lose me for a second?
You froze up, my
It was
dude.
me. Oh, okay.
I don't
So
know.
yeah. Anyways,
I'm in the middle of nowhere, so maybe it was me.
I even came into the office today to make sure that I didn't have that issue. So I'm not sure how much of that you got, but in HIPAA compliant states or in states with any type of regulations is what can be shown for patient privacy.
Right.
We have the ability to put up there anything you want. So,
Yeah.
it's just, we talk to the
And it's
operator.
really up to them deciding,
As long as there's a piece of
you
identifiable information somewhere in the API, we could lean
yeah.
on that. Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Okay. Scott Paris asks, for MSOs that are vertically integrated, can
Mhm.
Seed highlight product items specific to that organization, so the house brands,
Oh,
or
100%.
menus configured based on product type, pre-rolls, concentrate, and so on?
Yeah, wow, we really didn't even get into the signage aspect of it. So one of the great things about our software is we have incredibly complex filters. So what we can do, and that's a huge strategy of what separates us, I think, from other vendors in the space, is we want to get in there and know your business, and we don't want to just put up a menu of 700 SKUs. That does nobody any good. So absolutely, we could do a filter on a brand. We could do a filter on a specific product type. We could do a filter and look at aging inventory or overstocked inventory, whatever makes sense for you to be pushing. And the best thing is we automate these things. So you could build these parameters, these filters, and actually have those filters act differently in different stores based off of their inventory, yet it's the same filter operating at scale across your entire organization. So that's going to reduce your manual labor, and you could hopefully redeploy that into a more revenue facing job within your operations.
Yeah. Being able to judge if something's turning or not and then promoting that,
Yeah,
that's huge.
it really is. And, we do have the filters in there to understand what the inventory is. We obviously have to have, communication. And that's why we love working with other ancillary businesses in the space. We're always looking to get better by talking to other software providers. Like, how are we getting better insights? How do we improve our software? How do we, at the end of the day, make our mutual customers more successful in what they're doing?
Yeah. Well, you're there for the entrepreneur, and that's really what this is all about, right?
Sure. Well, yeah. I mean, entrepreneurs and also just the people who want to have a retail store. I guess they're all entrepreneurs at the end of the day, but yeah.
I look at us as being in an entrepreneur sport business at the end of the day. We're just helping
Absolutely.
people realize their dreams, and those dreams involve weed, which makes us even more interested. So
It is.
it's
It
good
is a
shit.
beautiful thing, isn't it?
It sure is. It sure is. We met in Vegas
Yes,
at
we did.
MJ Biz on the tail end of your stay at
At Dutchy.
Flow. Oh, you were
Was
at
it Flow
Dutchy.
Hub? Boy, when was it? Tell me the year. Was it 2021?
Yeah, 20 or
Okay.
21.
Yeah, depending on which one of those. No, Leaf Logics or Dutchy. I don't know if you've been acquired yet. Depends on if it's 2020, Leaf Logics, but we weren't acquired. If it's 2021, Dutchy at that point.
Right.
Yeah, we were
When
at the Cosmo
that's
having drinks and talking about cooking. Yeah, it was
yes, we
great.
were. We were
Talked a
talking
lot
about
about cooking.
weeds and smoking weed. It was a lot of fun. It was
Yeah.
great to meet you, man. And we were around a whole bunch of people who are both in and out of the industry still.
Yeah.
Now, you go back a little bit further than I did, right?
Mhm.
We started 8 years ago.
Okay.
And it's really interesting to see who survived and who's evolved and how they're approaching the market now. When you look at the market now
Mhm.
and we look back in the day, the consumer has changed, the
Yeah.
entrepreneurs have changed, the laws have changed, the whole landscape is completely different.
Yeah.
If you're looking 6 months ahead, I don't think we can look 12 months because we don't know what administration is coming in and so on, and also who the fuck knows. But if you're looking 6 months out, are you seeing any massive pops that are coming
Yeah.
down the road?
Optimistically, yes. I
Okay.
think, rescheduling, it's not as good as descheduling, but I think we've got to be happy with what we can get.
Yes.
Obviously, if we can get banking in here and reschedule, then it's a 30% revenue boost to everybody's bottom line. And they're going to start to be able to pay their employees a little bit better. You mentioned how great the bud tenders are at Higher Love. Bud tenders are the engine of this industry, and I never
Mhm.
understand an operator who won't give their best bud tenders or all their bud tenders pay more than the guy down the street. I walk in, I've stopped going to dispensaries because I just don't like interacting with some of the staff. And you could tell who's educated. And I don't even need like a real deep education. I've been a consumer since my teens, right? We're looking at 30 something years. But I want someone to have a good conversation with me
Yeah.
or not patronize me. And having that education, and there's some great companies out there that focus on bud tender education. I can't believe every dispensary doesn't have some type of an educational program out there. But yeah, sorry. So getting back to that. So seeing that 30% pop to the bottom line will allow people to have proper tax deductions, be able to invest in education, be able to invest in their infrastructure. I think that's huge. As I mentioned before, Florida, that's incredibly exciting. New York continuing to grow. Yeah, so I'm optimistic. Otherwise, I mean, you have to be optimistic in this industry, right? Survive
Well,
to 25. That's what it's been for quite a while now.
yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Banking, I'm really hopeful for next year.
Yeah.
But I really wonder if folks that have been burned for so long and have lost money for so long
Mm-hmm.
pocket the revenue and try to make back some of their capex that they put in, or reinvest and invest in their bud tenders and the rest of the systems. They already have so many monthly fees
Mm-hmm.
that go along with point of sale and your system and our support and all of that. It stacks. And
Yeah.
then I just wonder if that's where the money goes.
In some operators, I'm sure it will. And I
Yeah.
don't think those operators have a long-term view. And I think, good riddance to the people who are just here to make the money back and get out. I get it. It's like I'm just waiting for my stock to go back to somewhere around break even, and then I'm going to sell it.
Are we
And
talking about Dutchie again?
no, no, I'm just saying, just in general. I'm looking at my portfolio and my MSOs that I have purchased in there. But no, I mean, like, look, you're saying like people are just going to take the increased revenue and pocket it. I mean, God bless you. Some people put their life savings into here, and I'm not disparaging
Yes.
that at all. And if you can
Yes.
get whole on that and you have other things that you need to put that capital into, God bless you, man. Do what you got to do that's best for your family.
But as an
However,
entrepreneur, you look at it and you think about how you can take that 30% and make it 60 or make it
yeah,
80.
yeah. And like for the people who are here for the right reasons, who really want to increase their business efficiency, who want
Mhm.
to be the best in the space, who want
Mhm.
to continue to grow and evolve, or just make their experience for their customers the best in class, those are the people who are here long term. And those are the people I think are going to take that capital and distribute it properly, or that revenue.
Amen. And they're going
Yeah.
to be successful when the others kind of get those cobwebs. So Scott asks if terps can be a filter.
Oh, yes, we do have the ability to do that.
If the
We
point
are
of sale
doing that
has.
right now. Yeah, so that's an interesting thing. So for a couple of our customers, I want to name the point of sale provider they're on, but they did not have an exposed API to Terps. So we're working with them to get that. Once that is done, we will integrate it into the menu, into our filtering process. So absolutely. I mean, that's a great thing about software. We have incredible engineers running this company and a great API. Give us data and we can get it on there however you need to do it.
But you hit the nail on the head of the problem. APIs on the other end.
Yeah.
You are waiting for companies sometimes for a very long time to expose the data that you need.
Yeah. I mean, that's the reality of the situation.
And they have
It's,
limited resources.
yeah. I don't have a good answer to that.
There is no answer. It's a waiting game in a lot of ways, right?
Well, and that gets back to properly evaluating who you're going to bring in as a partner for your business. So, if I'm a retail dispensary, I've been in hundreds, if not thousands. I've certainly, 8 years of doing this. I've talked to so many operations in so many different states. The people who have the ability to invest in the best in class software are the ones who typically are going to do very well. People take shortcuts everywhere.
Yeah.
Anecdotally, I was talking to someone who I thought they were going to purchase our software. And they said, well, look, the owners own a bunch of gas stations. And you can see where this is going because you've had these conversations. And they
Right.
have digital signage in the gas stations. And I'm like,
Right.
you kidding me, right? It's like, no. And he knew. Like the GM's like, look, man, we're gonna have this conversation. I'm gonna call you back in a month. I'm like, cool.
Right.
Sometimes you have to let people feel the pain. I'm like, no integration, no cannabis specific anything.
Right.
And who are like these guys when they're dealing with gas stations who are very profitable and thousands of them across. Like, okay, you got
Yeah.
Bucky's as your customer, and this guy with 3 stores in New York. I mean, who's
Right.
really getting the attention there?
And I'm
So
sure you talk to the guys that are like, well, we make the PowerPoints every morning.
yeah, and how much time does like $20 an hour, let's say, is your average employee? And if they're not automating this process, if they're going in every day and updating the specials, looking at what's in the inventory, that's $600 a month. If we could automate
Hmm.
that for you, why would you not do it? And then, hey, I do a PowerPoint. It's like doing a paper menu, but not updating it for a month. Nothing is
Right.
worse than going into a store because I want to buy a specific product, whether it's promoted or not. I saw this product was available on your e-com
Mhm.
site, and I go in there and you don't have it. See ya. I'm not coming back. That's ridiculous. And
Right.
so, why you need an integration with some type of a low inventory threshold on there that's completely configurable? That's why it's so important. It is so much harder to bring a customer in. I'm sorry, to bring back a customer with a bad experience. It's almost
Yeah.
impossible to do so. There's
It's
so much,
impossible.
yeah, like you're saying in California, you just go to another one. There's more dispensaries and Starbucks in Colorado. If I have a bad
Yep.
experience, I'm just going somewhere else.
There's four within walking distance of my house.
There you go.
It's pretty insane. I mean, it's great for me. I get variety and
Yeah.
so on. But it is the way that it is in these mature markets. It's like, especially with licensing issues. So I'm exhausted,
Yeah,
and I
you're
think
in
I'm going to
India.
have to
You've
call.
got it. That's okay.
Yeah.
Always great to chat
My
with you,
day
man.
is,
Hmm.
is
Yeah.
oh fuck, it's always good.
I
Will I
like if
see
you could
you at
swear or anything.
Benzinga? Oh,
Macatoons could be at
I
Benzinga.
hope I can.
I I may sneak over to Benzinga. Maybe you should tell Matt that I should be there. I wasn't planning on it. I'm going to be in Ohio the week before at the OCBHS, Ohio Cannabis Business and Health Summit. Yeah, it's always a weird acronym for me. Very excited
Yeah,
to do that. So that's next
yeah,
Friday and Saturday.
yeah.
And then obviously MJ BizCon. I may do the Business of Cannabis out in New York in November with our friend Shabazz. I'm pretty sure you know Shabazz as well.
Yeah.
That's through Prohibition Partners. I'm giving them free publicity. Look at that. I didn't even think about it. They should give me a free ticket now. But I just talked to that team yesterday. This is a
But
really
it's Shabazz,
cool.
it's fine.
Yeah, it's a cool newer event focused on New York right there. So I'm going to be traveling quite a
Yeah,
bit. I'd love to be. I've never been to a Benzinga. It's one of the few events I've never been to. So if you're going to be
it's always
there,
interesting.
I'll be there. If not,
Yeah,
I'll see you at MJ BizCon. And
that sounds great. This Benzinga, I'm going as an investor. I kind of want to see what's out there.
ooh, there you
I
go.
think it'll be an
So you're gonna have
interesting
people
meeting.
kiss your ass for a change. It's gonna be a little bit different.
We'll see. It remains to be seen.
Wear a
I'll manage to
monocle.
get.
If you're an investor, you got to wear a monocle.
No,
Makes you
I
look
like that.
very legit.
It'll go great with my naked cat. Perfect.
Okay, well, Dr. Evil.
Yeah,
I love it.
that's
I
right.
love it. And it's a hairless cat. It's not a naked cat. Come on, that's just weird. Anyways, yeah, it's another conversation for another day.
We'll
This
talk
is,
about naked cats another
yeah,
time. But Mike, it's always good to see you and to
always a
see
pleasure,
you
Arch.
at a great company doing great
Thank you.
things.
I appreciate it. I
All of
appreciate it, man.
those.
We'll talk to you soon, buddy.
All right,
All
brother.
right.
Take care.
Take care.
All right. Thanks everybody for joining.
Yes, thank you. Bye.